I think this story will be improved by some context about the setting and such, so here we go. First, this took place after I graduated high school and moved away from my family. I moved up to Alaska again, and I say again because I lived there before and attended college there. Second, and very conveniently, my mother had been renting out our old house instead of selling it. I say conveniently because the long-standing residents had moved away and therefore I was awarded the old house. I had to work quite a bit to keep up the payments, but my mother pitched in, thankfully. Third, at the beginning of this story, I should make you aware that I had recently broken up with a girl who had been staying with me in the old house I was renting through my mother. And this breakup was unclean and dysfunctional, much like the relationship itself was. And finally, the story begins. It was winter break, which means I would be spending more time inside than I normally would. It was somewhat lonely in the house, being without a stable girlfriend then. Also, there's no neighbors really to speak of, as the house was in an extremely wooded region a few miles out of town. One late afternoon, soon after I thought the whole breakup predicament had come to a close, I was made quite aware that it wasn't. My cell phone began ringing and ringing from an unknown number. Cliché, I know, and I decided to pick up. It was, of course, my ex. She began telling me about how great her new boyfriend is and how horrible I was and am. The sort of talk that you can almost smell the booze off the caller's breath from miles away. I was actually listening until she decided to hand the phone over to her boyfriend, where he was instead sounding oddly threatening, and I decided to hang up in the most polite manner possible, with a "fuck you and have a nice day." Days later, again with my mind beginning to forget, only this time about the most certainly drunken phone call, I'm laying on the living room couch watching some TV. While laying there, I noticed something quite unsettling. A person standing in the window behind me. How did I notice this, you ask? The reflection from the TV screen is how. I didn't move, not an inch. I had no gun, I had no knife, I had nothing but my wit and my fists. I just lay there, watching the reflection. Eventually, it moved away from the window. That normally wouldn't spook me, but I was taking into account that 1. The house was nowhere near another, so that's a red flag. 2. If someone was just wanting to talk, they'd knock. And 3. I was most certain that it was that boyfriend of hers. Nothing became of that situation, but similar situations continued, such as a car pulling into the driveway and no one getting out and leaving inconspicuously. This was worrisome at the least, but I didn't suspect a true threat. A few days later, I'm laying in bed at night. It was very late and I was getting ready to sleep. I get another call from an unknown number. It's her, but this time she's asking me to come outside and come see her because she wants to deliver an apology. At the time I was thinking, oh, how do I say this? Fuck off. Though I still went outside to see what the deal was. I open the door and of course it's incredibly dark. I say into the phone, "Hey, I'm outside."
Come around back.
With this, I began to walk on the snow-covered ground in the darkness with just my put-on boots. The motion lights turn on as I cross the garage and the driveway. The snow masking the ground is tinted yellow by the light. I round the corner of the garage and turn my phone to see. There's a road that runs behind my house and connects to the driveway by bending, and I make my way towards the road. The snow crunches beneath my boots as I come even closer. There's a part in the trees that allows me to walk straight to the road, otherwise one would have to make his way around the entirety of the driveway, and I reach this part. I ask into the phone, "Where are you?"
In the car. I see you.
I step onto the road and see her car parked a few dozen feet away from me with the lights dimmed. "So, what's the deal?"
I just want to talk. Come here.
I approach the car and make my way around to the passenger side, and I finally see her face. She waves me in and I go ahead and oblige, sitting down in the car. I look at her and she says,
Look, I'm sorry. I know I've been a real bitch lately.
No, it's okay. I really wasn't good to you and I deserve it."
I don't agree, but...
Then, of course, she abruptly stops speaking because car lights shine from behind us. Naturally, I assume it's her boyfriend, and by the look on her face, she did too. The car parks behind us, and sure enough, the boyfriend gets out and storms over to my side of the car. He yanks on the door handle and the door swings open and he attempts to grab me, but I grabbed his wrist and got out of the car. "What the fuck do you think you're doing with her, huh?" We were talking and I was about to leave. "Bullshit, you're trying to fucking bang her." "Look, I'm trying to sleep and I'm in no mood to do anything." He gave me this look of utter enragement before swinging at me and, of course, missing. A little scuffle ensued and all that happened was him swearing and eventually slipping and falling before yelling at us both that he was going to fucking kill me and blah blah blah. I just stood by her car as he pulled away. She gave me a lift back to the house and I invited her in and she obliged. It was late in the night and I suggested she lock her car if she was going to stay the night and she, again, obliged. We slept upstairs in my bed before I awoke hours later. There was a banging at the back door and I knew this because the back door was directly below my room. She woke up too, whispering "oh my god" to herself. I stand up quietly and go to my closet and reach behind the coats that I'll never wear and grab my Louisville Slugger. She was sitting upright in my bed with her hand seemingly embarrassingly covering her eyes. I didn't say anything before walking down the stairs slowly, attempting to be silent. The lights were off and there's no windows on the staircase. The banging on the back door had audibly ceased. I held the bat tightly, making sure it didn't bang into the wall to signal my position at the time. I remember how slowly I stepped down, especially on the bottom 3 steps, which were always the creakiest. Once I reached the last step, I froze, and it still gives me chills to this day. The hardwood floors creak around the bottom of the staircase, and there was a creaking that was growing closer and closer. I raised the bat above my head, ready to slam whoever it was right on top of the head. The creaking grew closer until I could hear it from my side, and I planned to swing it as soon as it was right in front of me. As the staircase opened to the left from the bottom up, I listened very carefully, holding my breath. The creaking came to my northeast and I squeezed my hands tighter than I ever had before around the bat, waiting for it to become just north of me. The floor creaked again. This time they were directly in front of me and I slammed the bat down hard. I hit something hard and whatever it was crumpled to the floor with a bang and a small flash. I turned on the light and there he was, the boyfriend. He had shot his gun directly at the floor and left a hole in the hardwood. My ex came down the stairs and was crying profusely, muttering "I'm so sorry" over and over again. I called the local police station and 4 cop cars pulled into my driveway along with an ambulance in a matter of minutes. I sat there at the base of the stairs, watching the boyfriend. He was breathing. I could tell from his chest slowly inclining and declining off the floor. I had grabbed what I think was a 9mm off the floor and kept it in my hand with the safety turned on, and I just shook my head over and over in utter disbelief. I explained the situation to police as the paramedics rushed in and carried him out on a stretcher. All in all, I didn't get to sleep until the afternoon later that day after all things had been finished. He ended up actually being induced into a coma and eventually recovered, but a restraining order had already been filed in advance. My ex and I became good friends after the incident and she never dated that guy again. I never ended up moving, though I had considered it heavily, and nothing has since happened. And there you have it. That's my story. This just happened to me a few nights ago and I'm still shaken up, so bear with me. I'm a female bartender at a small cafe that doubles as a venue. During the day we serve coffee and lunch, and at night we have a full bar with bands, comedy shows, etc. On this night, there was an open mic comedy show. Not a lot of comedians showed up, so we ended up closing up shop early and I was ready to go home. I had a patron come in and order a single beer during the comedy show. He was acting nervous, but being a female bartender, I get male customers that are shy or don't want to talk to women, so I didn't think much about it. He sat down, sipped his beer, and watched the show. Since we closed early, everyone was pretty much gone and I wanted to lock up and clean so I could get home. After I escorted the last couple out of the bar and got ready to lock the door, I see the man from earlier walk down the back hallway and into the men's restroom. Not even a minute later, he burst through the door yelling, "Hurry, come back here, I need help." I stood on the opposite end of the hallway and asked him what was wrong. "The toilet is overflowing, there's water all over the floor, help me clean this up." I could tell that something was wrong and I replied, "It's okay, man, it happens, I'll mop it up. I'm just trying to close up right now." He continued to argue with me, trying to get me to come into the bathroom with him as I stood about 20 feet away down the hallway. Finally, he walks towards me very aggressively and tries to grab my arm. "You need to come back here now," he says. I immediately put my hands out in front of me so he can't come any closer and tell him he needs to leave. He walks outside and I lock the door behind him. I check the bathroom and it is completely spotless. No water on the floor at all. I flush the toilet and urinal and they're both working fine. I start to get nervous and I take my large pocket knife and clip it to my waistband of my pants, just in case. As I'm cleaning our espresso machine and putting toppers on the liquor bottles, I hear a tapping noise. I look up at the front of the store, which is one big window that has a few curtains covering it. The same man is tapping on the window, waving at me and laughing like a maniac. I watch him walk over to the door and pull on it. It doesn't open since I had locked it after he left. He starts screaming and pounding on the glass saying, "Open the fucking door! I'm going to fucking kill you." Fight overcame flight at this point and I walked around the counter and about 6 feet from the door. I pulled out my knife and locked eyes with him and yelled, "I'm calling the cops, get the fuck out of here." He smiled and walked out of view of the window. At this point, all of my adrenaline just crashed. I locked myself in the office and called 911 crying, explaining that I'm alone and a man tried to lure me into the bathroom and was outside trying to get into my bar. I waited an hour and a half and no police showed up. I called my boyfriend and he drove up to the shop. My manager watched the security cameras from home, making sure that the man didn't come back. I did the deposit and immediately drove home, my boyfriend following close behind me. My male busboy has been coming into work with me so I'm not alone, and the managers have been keeping an eye on the security cameras while I'm working.